thousands of soldiers from the 82nd Airborne out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. You see them there deploying for the Middle East in response to the latest escalation, some 3,000 of them. Now, joining me now, Paul Rieckhoff, who is the host of Angry Americans podcast and the founder of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. Paul, thank you for being here. Okay, so what will the recently deployed soldiers be doing on the ground there?
I don't think we know.
Okay,
and I don't think
but we know what the 82nd Airborne is. We know they're a quick deployment unit. So you get a quick deployment unit like this, and you have some 3,000, and they're being deployed to that area. What would necessarily be the mission?
Well, they're called America's 911. They're who the president calls when you need a quick deployment force. I mean, they're paratroopers. They're designed to do a lot of different things, but they are an aggressive show of force. And I think it's important to note they've been going back and forth in the Middle East for about 2 decades now. So our troops have continued to be thrown into situations where they don't know the outcome, they don't know the mission, they don't know the strategy. And again, this is the 82nd Airborne being thrust into Iraq. Many of them have already been there, and now they're going back in there. I think setting the perspective, stepping back for a minute, there are veterans in America that served in the Gulf War. They had sons and daughters that served in the first Iraq War, and now their grandsons and granddaughters are going back. Right?
Mind-boggling.
Yes. So basically 3 generations of American veterans and soldiers have been engaged in the Middle East in some way, shape, or form. And now Iran's been a player on the battlefield. Important to note that they've killed American troops on the ground in Iraq, and that's how most of us know of Soleimani and know of the Quds Force. But we don't know what's going to happen. And that's been the normal for us for about the last 2 decades.
That indeed. But all of that said, within the last few years, you have had this president who says he wants to end the endless wars. He has pulled back some troops, pulled back from troops from Africa just within the last week or so. And now we're deploying to Iraq based on a move that he made, deploying to Saudi Arabia. You know the military families as well. Do you get a sense that they have a sense of like whiplash with the commander-in-chief?
Yeah, absolutely. Like everyone else in America, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're a reflection of our society, and they don't have a sense that there's a clear-headed strategy. It seems like he's talking about going in and pulling them out. We need allies in times like this, and we just abandon the Kurds on the battlefield. And Soleimani is a very significant figure. I mean, in Iran, he's extensively popular. He's kind of like McChrystal, Petraeus, George Washington, the vice president, the head of the CIA, all wrapped into one. So there will be a backlash, and unfortunately, U.S. troops and forward edge State Department people, policymakers, they're going to be the ones who feel it first.
When you talk to many of your fellow vets or people who are serving right now, do they support the moves of this commander-in-chief?
They're as diverse as the American people. I think overall the popularity and support for the president in the country has gone down, and that's been reflective in recent polls in the military as well. I mean, this kind of back and forth is I think, most concerning for the troops. And the move to abandon the Kurds was the most universally condemned that I've seen in the military since he's been president. And I think the repercussions of that are still lasting. They don't feel like they know what's next. And that's a dangerous place to be if you're a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne.
It's also a dangerous place if you're a husband or wife back at home and with a family member and trying to figure out or plan your future.
Yep. On New Year's Eve, everybody else got congratulatory calls. They got deployment calls. On New Year's Eve, they found out they're going into Iraq. That underscores the disconnect that is happening right now in our society, too.
And they did it without a problem. That's why we're proud of them.
Yeah.
All right, Paul Rieckhoff, thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Appreciate it. We're less than a month away from the Iowa caucuses. Up next, a deep look at Iowa and what the candidates need to do to come out on top in the first major test of the 2020 race.